Okay, so everyone should have access to the Wi-Fi ether, and there's the password. It should also be on the back of your cards, I believe. So if you didn't get one of these, let Jessie know. She can get you one, or if you need the password, if you get disconnected, look on the back of that. Like I said, we're going to do a very short PowerPoint presentation today. We're going to do just kind of introduction about the agenda, and then we'll also show you where the resources are on the website. So if you're curious about where to find the videos or the help file or even the forum, we'll show you where that is today as well. There'll be plenty of time for questions. If I don't get to spend enough time on a subject that you have a lot of questions about, feel free to grab Jessie, feel free to grab Michael Richter in the back during a break, or just go out in the hall and speak to me quickly if you have a more in-depth question that we just had to move on from. There's coffee in the back. Obviously, today is a work day for everyone, so you guys get suspended here instead of in the office. Our employees are obviously going to be here today, so just keep that in mind. If you need to step out, take a phone call. We ask that you do just step out of the office because we do take a lot of calls throughout the day, so we do have our sales team and our tech support team taking calls throughout the day as well. We're going to try to do a 10-minute break about every hour and a half or so, just kind of how things go. I know it's a lot of information. It's not the most interesting information, so we'll try to give you guys some mental breaks throughout the day, so it's not too bad for you. Lunch will be here around 11:30 or 12, and we'll obviously take an hour break before that when it gets here. You guys should have all gotten a copy of the agenda today. We're going to stick to this as close as possible, but like I said, we may deviate or spend more time on something if you have specific questions. Just a couple of the resources that we like to mention. We do have webinars usually about once a month. We do record those. Those are available on the website. So if you do have any questions or want to view one of those are available. A lot of you are familiar with our tech support, but we do offer phone and email support. So just keep that in mind. If you do have questions from this meeting or just in general when you're using the software, that you can reach us. We're going to be using the help file today. To access the help file in your QuoteWerks installation, just click on the help menu and that says QuoteWerks help. That'll open up the help file for you, and you can kind of follow along with what we're showing here. We do offer a couple services for training, so if anyone is interested in, maybe you don't have QuoteWerks installed, we do offer an implementation service. If you just need like an hour session with support, we offer a booster session. We also offer sales rep training if your sales reps need to get up to speed on how to use QuoteWerks as well. We're going to be at events, so if you guys are at an event and you see us, definitely stop by. We like to talk to all our users, and if you have any events that you think would be a good fit for, let us know. We're always interested in checking out those events. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to cover today is going to be just some of the general setup in QuoteWerks. We're going to start under the Tools Options menu. Anything you change under the Options menu is going to be something that is going to be site-wide. So anytime you make a change to an option, there's usually two things you need to remember. One, you're going to change it for everybody. So that's important that you're making changes that is going to be site-wide for everyone that's using QuoteWerks. The other one is that typically, if for a change to take place, you need to close QuoteWerks and then restart it. So just something to keep in mind if you set a default here on the Documents tab, or you change something on the Installation tab, you'll need to make sure that you've closed QuoteWerks and restarted it for that change to take effect. So we're going to go through these tabs. I'm going to highlight kind of the important features of each tab. The Documents tab is where you can set a lot of defaults. This is where you can set your document type default, so that's going to be quote, order, invoice. So when you start a blank quote in QuoteWerks.
Where is the options?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you click under Tools, Tools and then Options. So the document type will be your default document type in QuoteWerks. Typically we start this as a quote, but you could start it as an order or an invoice if you wanted to as well. If you have a default tax rate you want to set, you can do that here. This can be changed on a per quote basis, so if you need to adjust this, you can do that. If you just want to set a default of 0, if you don't charge sales tax, that's fine as well. This is just where you can make that initial default setting. If you offer terms for your customers and you want to set the default terms, you can set that here as well. Same thing with ship via. If you always ship FedEx or UPS or USPS, you can put that in here as well. If you quoted an alternate currency, if you quote Canadian dollars or euros, you can set a default alternate currency here as well, so you don't have to set it each time you want to quote in QuoteWerks.
Is there a way to do it by county the sales tax?
There's is not, unfortunately. You can set up multiple tax rates if you want to. When we get to the sales info tab, we'll show you how to do that. But you can't set a default. The due date you can actually ignore. We don't really use that field anymore. It was kind of like our old expiration date field, so now we actually have an expires date. Typically, if your quote expires within 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you can set that here. And what this does is anytime you start a new document, it'll automatically populate the expiration date from, in this case, 30 days from the document date. So if I started a new quote today, it would be 30 days from today that this quote would be good. And then you have your shipping options as well if you want to set default shipping, if you do it based on weight, if you always enter it manually, or if you add it up on each line item. Obviously, if you're going to add it up on each line item, you would need to have the weight already set for the individual items. Shipping tax code, the taxable or non-taxable, and then the shipping item type. The shipping item type is really only going to apply for you ConnectWise users. So if you're using ConnectWise, the shipping item type, if you want it to go over to ConnectWise a specific way, you can set that default here. For everyone else, that's not going to matter too much. The deposit amount, you're going to have a few different options. You can require no deposit, so that will show up on the document. If you require the full amount, you can set that as well. You can also do it as a percent of the document. So if you just want to say, customer needs to put 15% down, this is where you can set that default as well. You can also do a fixed amount. Maybe they need to put $500 down to essentially accept the quote. You can also do it as a percent of a line item in the document. So maybe the customer needs to pay for the services up front, or the hardware up front, or products up front, or something like that. You can do it as a percent of a line item or multiple line items in the document. If you do set a deposit, this will also translate to Quote Valet. So if any of you are using Quote Valet, this will show up on Quote Valet what the customer needs to pay as well when they accept the quote.
Brandon, I have a quick question. If you put a deposit amount here, let's say you say 50%, that would apply then to every proposal, correct?
That is correct.
So if you want it only on certain proposals, where do you do that?
You can do that on the bottom left corner of the document item screen. That will let you set the deposit. So even if you set a default deposit here, so if I set a deposit of 50%,
Right.
it's automatically going to default to 50% here, but if I want to change it to this specific proposal, then I can just click on the ellipsis button here and it'll bring up the same window.
What button? What button?
The ellipsis button right there.
Oh.
Yeah,
And you just manually
exactly.
plug in the amount?
Right.
Okay.
So if you only accept deposits on a third of your documents, I probably wouldn't set a default, and you can just essentially set it on a per document basis as needed. The last thing on here is going to be the document name. So when you save your quote in QuoteWerks, if you haven't changed the setting, it uses the company that you're selling to and today's date by default. So if you ever wanted to change this, this is where you can make that adjustment here. You can see this is just a macro. If you click on the little icon right above the field, it'll say insert macro value, and this will give you a list of all the macros that you can use in QuoteWerks. So if you have a specific naming convention you want to use for your documents, this is how you can make that change. You can always go back to the original. You can enter in multiple macros if you'd like to. You can remove it. You can always have it blank. However you want to name your documents, it's going to be completely up to you. Any questions on the documents tab?
I have a quick question. You skipped customer profile. What exactly does that entail?
That's if you have customers that have special pricing, so it's like a government customer or something like that, where your pricing changes based on what type of customer they are. So if they're wholesale or government or end user kind of thing. Do you guys do that?
We just have certain customers we give certain discounts to.
Okay, you could use that for that. You're using Goldmine, correct?
Yes.
If you have it mapped in Goldmine, you can use the data link to actually pull that field into QuoteWerks, so it actually sets the profile for you. I know this is going over your head and a little confusing. We can talk offline about it, but there's a way to essentially automate it from Goldmine using our data link to pull that field over.
And all the custom Texas, you'll explain more about all that.
Right, yeah. So the custom fields on the left-hand side are from your custom tab right here. So if you've renamed any of those fields, they are going to show up here, and this will let you set a default for those fields. So if you're using any of those custom fields and you want it to set a default, this is where you can do that. We're going to skip over to the installation tab. There's a couple settings here that I want to highlight that can be pretty important. The first one's going to be the document number prefix. This is where you can change the first 3 letters of your document number. So if you've ever saved a quote in QuoteWerks and it says AAAQ1001, it's usually the first question you get is how do you change that AAA? This is where you'll change that. If you click on the ellipsis button here, it'll actually let you put in whatever characters you'd like. It has to be 3 characters, can't be more, can't be less, unfortunately. But a lot of companies use their company name or their location if they have multiple locations, so that's an option for you. So as you can see, I've changed mine to FLA. This is also where you can set your revision sequence type. So in QuoteWerks, we have this revision button, and when you click on the revision, it makes a copy of your quote and adds a -01 to the end of the document number, so you know it's the first revision of that original document. If you'd rather do it by alpha instead of numeric, it'll add a -A.
Where is that again, sorry?
On the installation tab.
Okay, and can you go over that revision thing again?
Sure. So the revision button, when you click on it right here, this will create a copy of your document. So if you send a quote to a customer asks for a change, says, hey, remove this item, send me over this option, and let me compare the quotes. This is how you can create those revisions. This revision sequence type option right here basically says you want it to be numeric or alpha. So it'll say the document number -01 is the first revision. If you want it to be alpha instead, it would say -A.
But when you go to save it, you have to save it as a revision. If you save it as a regular save, it doesn't view it as a revision, right?
Right, it'll just say over it.
Okay.
Are you gonna go over the revision yet, another, little bit?
That's okay. Your next quote, order, and invoice and PO number sequence buttons or options, this is where you can change the document number. So when you save a quote, it gives you the 3 letters, so AAAQ1001. If you want to start that numbering sequence in any of these document types, this is where you can make that change. So if you just started using QuoteWerks or maybe it's a new year, you want to start with a new document number, this is where you can make those adjustments, or you can even reset it if you need to. Check for in-use documents. This is a very important setting if any of you are using QuoteWerks on a network where you have other users that you share documents with. Everyone edits other users' documents. And check for in-use documents will make sure that only one person can be in the document at a time. So this is going to be an important setting again, so you don't have other users saving over everyone's quotes. This will actually prevent anyone from opening that document. It'll tell you which user is using that document and how long they've had it open. So if they've been gone for a week on vacation, it says they've had the document open for 1,000 minutes, you'll know you can probably go over to their machine and kick it out. These other ones we're not going to worry about yet. You're converting documents. So when you convert a quote to an order in QuoteWerks, that's how we close a quote, and we're going to discuss that today. But what's important to remember here is that when we convert a quote to an order, you have 2 options. You can either have the documents use different numbering sequences. So if I had this option checked here, when I create a quote and then I convert it to an order, if my order may have a different number sequence. So you can actually see here, if I left it this setting, my quote would be AAA or FLAQ 1415, but when I converted it to an order, it would be FLAO 1027. For me, I think that's a little confusing because it's easier to have everything use the same numbering sequence. So if you use this next checkbox right down here, this will use the same numeric sequence and just change the document type designator. So basically, it'll make it easy for you to know that this is my order. If my quote was FLAQ 1415, my order is going to be FLAO 1415. So it's going to use that same numeric sequence. Just makes it a little easier to keep track of all your documents and not get a little lost there.
On mine, that second line is in gray, and I can't check that out.
Oh, just uncheck the box on top of it, and it should let you.
So when you do that, right now you have 4 different number sequences for your quote or invoice PO. So if I've now just changed it to keep the same, will it realign all those numbers?
It's going to leave these here, but QuoteWerks will essentially ignore them. We're essentially just storing them into the database, so if you wanted to change it, QuoteWerks knows where to start, so it doesn't save over anything, but it's not going to use these. Essentially, this is saying ignore these.
Okay.
That's a good question. Preserve quote when converting to order or invoice. If you want to save a copy of your quote when it's been converted to an order or invoice, just check this box. Same thing with preserve order when converting to invoice. This is useful if you want to keep a copy of your quotes, whether they're open or closed. If you do any kind of forecasting or reporting, this is something you're probably going to want to do because you might want to see how many quotes have been converted. Because if you don't do this, if you leave this unchecked, then we're just going to take your quote, turn it into an order, and the quote essentially no longer exists in QuoteWerks. Allocate inventory. We don't have inventory tracking in QuoteWerks, but what this will do is if you have an availability set on an item, it'll actually deduct it from that availability. It's one way, which means that if you said, we have 10 of this item, you sold 3 of them, you allocate 3, it'll say, hey, you have 7 left. If you get 5 more in stock, you need to manually go update that item and say, hey, we just got 5 more in stock. Now there's 12 instead of 7. So we don't, like I said, we don't actually do inventory, but that's a little feature that some people like to use just to at least deduct it. Remove non-selected optional items when converting to an order, or when converting, whether it's to an order or an invoice. This is very useful if any of you are using Quote Valet and you give options to your customer, and the customer goes in and they actually select which options they want. If they deselect an option, when you convert it to an order, QuoteWerks will remove that option from the order automatically, so you don't have to worry about manually removing it or having to remember. Everything will stay in sync.
So similar to that, when you use a lot of headers in the quote, and then you go to convert it, is there a way to strip off all those headers? Or it just takes whatever's there?
Yeah, unfortunately not. That's a feature request. So if you want to bring it up,
Okay.
I'll write it down for you, and if you want to send an email in as well, it's always helpful.
All right.
But yeah, that would be a feature request. I've requested that one myself as well. So
Can you kind of explain that again? Because I've never non-selected option, what does that mean?
So do you guys use Quote Valet?
No.
Okay. It's going to be pretty specific to Quote Valet. So if you're not interested in using it, it won't really apply to you. All right. Your documents, when you create a new document in QuoteWerks, have specific statuses. So a new quote is going to have a status of open. If you use different terminology, maybe you call it drafted or created, this is where you can set that different status. A lot of users like to use the same statuses that they have for their opportunities in their CRM. So you can set those statuses here. This is going to be the default status, and you can click on the ellipsis button right next to it, and that will actually let you set a variety of different statuses. You can see you can click on new, and this will actually let you create a brand new status to set in QuoteWerks. And that goes through the same here. This is basically letting you set your default statuses for any of these. All right. Any other questions about the installation tab? The other tabs will go pretty quick. These are just the documents, and the installation tab are kind of like the 2 main tabs where you have most of your settings.
Brandon, is it possible in the document number profile just not to use any lettering in front of your sequential number for your quotes?
That's an excellent question. I'm not sure. I've never tried.
Oh, okay.
You can give it a shot. It may say that it's required. It says it must be 3 characters. Yeah, I think if you don't put anything in there, so it'll just default to our AAA.
But you can strip it on your form though.
Yeah, I know that. I was just thinking it'd be a simpler way to do that.
You might be able to put 3 spaces in there. It just says characters. So if we did 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. So space is invalid character. Yeah. So there's not a way to do that. Any other questions about the installation tab? Alright, we're going to go through a couple of these other tabs pretty quickly. The document items tab, this is where you can set your blank document items. So when you add a blank item to the document, you can set the default, whether it's taxable or non-taxable, and whether you have a default cost or price modifier. So if you say, we always mark up our items 15% from cost, or we discount it 25% from list, you can set those modifiers here. So basically anytime if you manually add an item to the document, it's automatically going to use this price modifier. If you're pulling an item from the product database and you don't have a price set or a price modifier already set by default, it'll use this one as well.
Can you, if you set that as a default, but then you want to use an MSRP instead of a markup, do you have the option to override it, or should you just leave it blank?
You can actually set it as list.
Right.
and then it'll just use the MSRP.
But then at those times you want to do one or the other, should you just leave it blank?
It's up to you, because you can change it once it's on the quote. This is basically just saving you a step, you know, if you forget to mark it up or you forget to set it to list, so you're not selling the item at cost, you know, on accident to the customer. The payment tab, this is fairly new. Is anyone using Leasing?
Not yet, but we'd like to.
Okay.
What is that?
Basically, you can offer your customer lease payments. So instead of having to pay for it upfront, you work with the lease provider, and they'll give you a rate card, and then you can essentially charge them more for it for a longer period of time. The payment tab here will let you set different terms. There's basically, well, there's two of them actually on here. There's credit card and terms. So if you want to give your customer the option to pay in full with a credit card, or pay with terms, or even do a lease option, you can set the first two here. And then when we actually create a document, you'll be able to set the lease terms as well.
How does that credit card work through QuoteWerks?
I'm sorry, it's only going to work through Quote Validate. It'll show up on the quote as credit card as your terms if it's selected on a printed quote. So they'll say, oh, they need to pay with credit card, but that's the terms that you've set.
So we don't have those tabs on ours, is that quote valid?
You probably are just running an older version of QuoteWerks. Yeah, so if you're not running, I'm running version 5 build 4.40. So if you're running anything earlier than that, this might be a little different. The leasing tab is where you would set your default leasing rate. So any of you that are interested in starting to use leasing, this is essentially where you'll set your default provider. You'll be able to change it when you add a lease payment to QuoteWerks, and I'll show you how that works here in just a few minutes. But this is essentially where you're going to choose your rate card and then set your kind of defaults that you want to offer. Again, this is just going to be the default. What's going to be important though is at the bottom here, this is going to be how it looks on your document. This is what's going to be displayed to the customer. So you can see here you can change this. So if you want to shorten it or just make it easier to review, you'll be able to make that adjustment. The field links are not something that we're going to mess with. I would just leave those settings as is. The print tab, this is where you can change the print order of the document. So if you want your cover page always to be the first document that is on the PDF, this is where you can actually move these items around. In our next release, probably in the next month, a lot of you probably got the email that we're updating our print engine. We're going to be changing this and adding even more flexibility. But for right now, for the next couple weeks, if you need to move things around, this is where you can change that. So I have mine set where my cover page prints first, then my layout, then any of my literature documentation, then my spec sheets, and then anything that's on the links tab. So if you need to change the order of anything, this is where that's done. Again, remember this is going to, since it's under options, it's going to change it for everyone. So just make sure that everyone's on board with changing that before you start moving things around. We'll also automatically attach the PDF sent to the customer to your CRM, to the CRM account or the opportunity. So if you are using one of the CRMs or PSAs that we integrate with, we automatically take the PDF document that's emailed to the customer and attach it either to the account or the contact or the opportunity, depending on which one you're using, depending on which CRM or PSA you're using.
Is that a new feature in version 5?
It's newish.
Prior, I had to go manually. It would attach the DTF file.
Okay. You're using AutoPass?
Salesforce.
Salesforce. Okay. Yeah. If you update to the latest version, it'll attach the PDF.
I have a quick question, and this might be something that I step out, but it goes to our contact. We have Goldmine, but we were hoping that it would go to an opportunity, and I guess we don't.
But it goes to the
utilize
it goes to the
that.
contact and not the opportunity.
Yeah.
We have to manually go in and do all that, and we were wondering if there was a quick.
To just get it straight to the opportunity.
I don't think there is. I think it is a manual set.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Attaching the PDF to the opportunity in Goldmine, is that possible without doing it manually?
The contact. It attaches it to
No.
the contact, but not to the opportunity.
It's right now. It's contact driven. It's going strictly to the contact.
So
Yeah.
there's no quick.
There's no other way to do that.
Thanks.
The miscellaneous tab, this has a couple different settings. The ones that we're going to talk about are going to be your decimal places. If you put out more than 2 decimal places, this is where you can make that adjustment. Just keep in mind that if you change it here, you also need to change it on your layout. So if you say, we quote out in 4 decimal places and we want customers to see that, you also have to change it on your layout as well. These are also going to be the different file names for your different file types in QuoteWerks. So when we attach a file, we use the document number, and then I also just added the word test, so I know that it's always my test installation that I'm doing that from. But this is going to be the PDF name when I save my quote out in QuoteWerks. So we use the document number by default, but you can change it. You can add anything on there if you wanted to call it, add the document number and then also add the customer's company name. You can do that as well. You can see there is an insert macro file here, so you can actually change or add to that setting. Same thing with the PO document. This is just going to be what the default PO document attachment is. Report, and then also the link resource file. So when you add anything to the link resources tab, this is where that's going to be adjusted as well. One that's probably going to be important for a lot of you is going to be the opportunity. This is where we set that opportunity name. So if you're using Salesforce, Autotask, Goldmine, ConnectWise, Act, any of those, when we save the opportunity in that CRM or PSA, this is the default naming convention we're using. So if you ever wanted to change that, this is where you can do that. Your regional settings, these are pretty much going to already be set. I wouldn't really change that unless you're literally moving countries. Alright, synchronization. Does anyone have any remote users? Okay. This is going to do a couple things. This is going to essentially look anytime that you are connected to the network. It's going to look for other DTF files that have been added. This is also going to force the creation of the linked document when you save the document in QuoteWerks. And what that means is basically anytime we integrate with any of the CRM or PSAs, we actually save a copy of the .dtf document, the actual QuoteWerks document, into the CRM or PSA. It's a checkbox when you save it. If you want to force that, then you check this box and it will always save that document in your CRM or PSA. This is also where your remote users, you can set the default for your remote users to sync. If you guys have more questions about that, we'll take that one offline. RealTime, this is where you'd set your real-time credentials. So if you need to put in your account credentials from the various distributors, this is where that's going to be done under the real-time setup. Simply go through the tabs and just add your information. The Cloud Account tab, this is going to be your Quote Valet credentials. So if you're using Quote Valet, this is where you're going to put in your credentials. That was pretty straightforward. The Security tab, there's one thing that's going to be kind of important. If any of you have multiple product databases that you don't want another user to see, maybe you sell different product lines and you want only sales rep A to only sell from product line A and sales rep B to only sell from product line B. You can actually enable individual product data source level security. With this checkbox, this will give you control over who can view, edit, delete, and create databases in QuoteWerks. So this setting right here under the security tab is going to be specifically responsible for that. And then the accounting tab, if you're using QuickBooks or Sage 50, this is probably already set for you, but if you need to change it, you can. This is where you can set which accounting integration you're using. And also if you're going to be using QuoteWorks for purchase orders, this is where you can set that default as well.
So this is where you go to, like if we want to integrate to QuickBooks, this is where we go to make the integration?
Correct. Yeah, because once you set it here, there's an option that says QuickBooks integration and it says setup link, and that'll open up the setup link window. You do have to have QuickBooks open and running, so just keep that in mind.
And on the purchase order integration, if we have ConnectWise but we don't have a purchasing module, then we can't.
Right. That's a good point. So if you want to use QuickBooks for your POs, you can do that. If you don't want to use the PO integration, that's fine also. And then company information is just going to be the default your company's contact.
Just a quick question, that third item where it says estimates, invoices, sales orders, integration, we've probably been with QuoteWerks since maybe 2007. When we initially did it, that wasn't there, so that's not set up.
Okay.
What effect does that have?
Um,
Because like the way we're running today, everything exports over into our accounting system. So I'm not exactly sure
you
what
guys are
benefit.
using Peachtree?
Yeah,
You should, depending on what version of QuoteWerks you're running, you should have to set it.
we're current.
Okay. We'll look at that on a break.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't want to change anything and then disrupt
Right.
everything.
No, I understand.
You know?
Yeah, we'll have Michael take a look at that
Okay.
on the break and see what's going on. All right. So those are going to be the major default options that we set for the installation. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we didn't set or didn't see?
On the miscellaneous tabs, file name generation, we actually set that. We can change that to on the, where you have @dh_doc. Right. Can I change that and rename it to what I want it to be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Now this is a macro, so it's saying this is going to be the document number, so it's going to automatically populate the document name with the document number.
Okay.
If you want to put in static text, you can do that. If you want to change it to the company name that you're selling to, that's fine too.
Okay.
Or really,
Under company, there's company message 1, company message 2.
it's just another field, so if you wanted to put it on your layout, it's just another field you can add. It's like
Another
a
line.
company motto or something like that, you can use that one. Alright, so the next option we're going to go through is the Tools My Preferences. So the Tools My Preferences is where you're going to set your individual security or your individual preferences for your users. So whoever you're logged in as QuoteWerks, we'll go to Tools, My Preferences, and that'll bring up, the first one is going to be your Personal tab. It's just going to be your contact information, so full name, title, address. This is what's going to appear on your quotes that you send out to the customer. So obviously you want to make sure that that information is correct. Your email tab, that's going to be your email information, so make sure you do have your return email address in here. Typically, this is going to be the document attachment format as a PDF. You usually don't want to send your quotes out as an RTF because then the customer could actually change them. So a PDF is a little more secure that way. And this is also where you're going to choose how you're sending out your documents. A lot of you are using Outlook. You can just send it via Outlook. If you're using your own email client, you can use the QuoteWerks built-in email client to connect to it and send via that way instead. If you're using Gmail as well, you can see here I have actually this little Gmail button, and you can click on that, and that'll just pre-fill with the Gmail information, and then you just put in your Gmail login password.
Where's that?
Where is that, he was asking?
Oh, if you just change the drop-down where it says send email using, and then change it from Microsoft Outlook to QuoteWerks built-in, and then it'll give you the option.
And then where's the Gmail? Oh, that just that.
Yeah, just a little icon right there, kind of hidden on the side.
What if I want to use something other than Gmail, but I don't want to use sending email using, which is the standard?
Then you'll just use the QuoteWerks built-in email client, and then you'll just need to put in your email server information.
Okay.
The defaults tab, this is where you can set a default CC, BCC, and your subject for your email. So every email that's sent out from QuoteWerks, you can choose if you need to have someone CC'd or BCC'd on it. And again, this is where you can set that default subject. You'll see with our naming convention, pretty consistent where we're using our document name and our document number on pretty much everything we send by default. But again, you can change that as needed. There's a little macro icon so you can insert a different macro field. Or you can manually type in here as well.
So this is if I can put my own email in the blind copy, and every time I send a quote, it'll always blind copy me?
Correct.
Oh, perfect.
And then your signatures here, we have 5 different options for signatures. So if you sell from multiple companies, different company names, or maybe you have different job titles and you need to switch your active signature, you can set the default here, but you can set those up by clicking on the little edit option, and that'll bring up the little HTML window. You can see here you can add different macros. This is something that we could spend a lot of time on, so I'm just going to briefly discuss it. But if you have specific questions about setting up your signature, just grab me during the break and we can talk more about it. Miscellaneous tab, completely ignore, don't touch that, just pretend it doesn't exist. The views tab, this is where you can set up your columns on the document item screen. So a lot of you probably have maybe the default, you have all these columns, I think we have 144 columns. So if you want to change the list of columns that show up, simply click on the document items button here. This will show you all the columns that are available, and you can uncheck or just click hide and it does the same thing, and that'll hide or show columns, and you can even rearrange from here, you can even rename them if you need to. So this is a great place to kind of customize what QuoteWerks is going to look like for your individual user. If you're an admin user or you're the QuoteWerks admin, you can click on the Apply To tab and you can actually apply that to other users. So if you go through and you set up a specific user, whether it's yourself or someone else, and you hide these different columns, you rename these, and then you want to apply it to another user, just click on the Apply To tab and choose which users you want to apply it to. Customized menus, we're not really going to go into this because it's pretty complicated, but if you need to have QuoteWerks launch an external application or access something, you can actually do that by customizing the menu. So for instance, if you wanted it to open up the calculator or open up a specific web page when you're building a quote, you can actually have a build a menu option that will do that for you. That's something else we'll take offline if you're interested in learning how to do that. Your default Workbook tab, most of you probably have it set to document item, but you can change it that when you start QuoteWerks and you created a brand new quote where you want it to start, you can choose any of the tabs to start on. So if you want to change that, you always use the links tab and you want to start there to make sure that you're attaching your documents, you can start on the links tab, you can start on the sold to, ship to, and maybe you forget to add the contacts sometimes, you can do that as well. Appearance, if you don't like the way QuoteWerks looks, you have the option to change the appearance of it. That's pretty straightforward. Spelling, we're going to skip over. Alright, the miscellaneous tab. So the miscellaneous tab has a couple different settings. I'm not going to go through all these. For the most part, you're going to leave these as is when you install the software, but there's a couple that you'll probably want to change. One of them that's very useful is if you are editing layouts in QuoteWerks, is uncheck the auto close print window. Because every time you're changing a layout and you want to kind of review it, the window will close. So if you're editing layouts, you can leave this one unchecked. Confirm before exiting QuoteWerks. If you've ever been working in a quote and accidentally just click on try to close the quote, but instead you close QuoteWerks itself, with this checked box, this will actually say, are you sure you want to exit before closing? And then warn if document is unsaved when printing or emailing. This is one that I would recommend for everyone. With this checked, if you have not yet saved your document, before you send it out to the customer, QuoteWerks will pop up a message saying, hey, this document has not been saved, so there's no document number, it hasn't been integrated with your CRM or PSA. So I would highly recommend everyone checking that box pretty much out of anything. That's really the only reason we're on the miscellaneous tab is to make sure you guys have that one checked. If any of you remote into the office and you have multiple monitors, I'm actually remoted into my machine at my desk. So I have this checked, that way you don't lose windows. This is what this is for specifically is, don't remember window location, is if you leave this unchecked, QuoteWerks remembers where you opened up a specific window. Well, if you're on multiple monitors and then you remote in and you don't have multiple monitors, you're going to lose your window, it's going to be on another screen. So if you leave this unchecked, or if you check this, this will not remember it and it'll always default to the main screen instead. And then your PDF here, oh, actually, this is new. I was worried about this one. The document search default. So when you click on the open window, by default, QuoteWerks can choose how you want the search to start. Do you want it to show you all your active quotes, your documents, your recent documents, all active quotes, all documents, or all recent documents? If you've been using QuoteWerks for a very long time, I would highly recommend only doing the my active quotes, my documents, or my recent documents, because you may have a very large document database. It may take a couple seconds for it to actually open and load.
How recent is recent?
This was released in build one?
No, he means recent documents, how far back is
Oh,
it
30
gonna
days,
be?
Oh.
sorry.
30 days.
Yeah, it's anything that's been modified within the last 30 days. So, if you do my documents, this will just show you a list of all of your documents in QuoteWerks. My active quotes is going to show you a list of all open documents, whether they're expired or not. We just care that the document status is set as open, hasn't been converted to lost, hasn't been converted to one or anything like that. And then your PDFs, if you want to merge the PDFs into a single PDF file, you'll want this checkbox checked. These will probably already be set for you. You probably won't need to make any changes here. But if you want your, or you don't want your hyperlinks underlined, you can uncheck this. If you want to make your PDF read-only, you can do that. You can even have it so the customer can't copy and paste out of the PDF. So if you are showing part numbers and helping with price shopping, that's an option. And then any of you that are using a CRM or PSA that's web-enabled, such as ConnectWise, AutoTask, Salesforce, this is where you'll put in your user credentials for that CRM or PSA. If you're using Goldmine, Act, if you're using Goldmine or Act, you're not going to have to do that. You're not going to have this tab. But anyone that's using Salesforce, Sugar, or AutoTask or ConnectWise, you'll want to set that. Any questions about anything on my preferences or the options before we move on? No? All right. So if you look at the agenda, and if you're following along on the help file, we're going to move to chapter 10, and actually this is chapter 9, where we talk about our contact management. Typically what we do in the trainings is we go over each contact manager, so show you how to set them up, show you how to use them. We're going to do things a little differently today. Is there anyone who wants to see something specific in CRM in the one that you're using? Because if I show you how to set up one, it's pretty much the same for all of them, and a lot of you aren't using the same ones. So if you have something specific you want to see in your CRM, I'd rather cover that because that'll be a little more beneficial. So I'm going to go ahead and start with anyone that's using Goldmine. Is there anything that anyone that's using Goldmine wants to see specific with the integration? If you want to see how it's set up, how we save it, how we pull contacts, anything like that. All of them go? Okay, that's fine. Alright, so when you're going to set up your contact manager in QuoteWerks, it's going to be under Contacts, Set up Contact Manager, and then you're going to select your CRM. Some of the CRMs, such as Goldmine, ConnectWise, Act, AutoTask, Salesforce, they're going to have an additional setup button. So when you click on that, that's going to bring up the integration setup, and this will give you a few different options. So in this case, we can choose whether you want to use the profit amount versus the sale amount in the forecasted sale. You can choose the completion of forecasted sale from QuoteWerks. So what this is saying is when you convert a quote to an order in QuoteWerks, do you want us to update in this case, the forecasted sale in Goldmine? Or do you want it to only happen when we convert it to an invoice? Or do you want us to not touch it at all? So this is where you can choose what that setting is. Does that make sense to Goldmine users? Forecasted sale and completed sales notes. If you have various notes that you want to send over to Goldmine, you can set these settings as if you always want to write to the notes, and it's going to overwrite the existing, so that's important to note. Only write if the notes are empty, so basically if you have something else that you want to include and there's nothing on the notes, it'll write it over there, or just do not write the notes. You can see here when you select one of these, there's actually an option for setting up the forecast and completed sales notes. So you can set like defaults if you want to say, purchase document number. You can actually insert the document number. You can use a macro for that. Fax rush, Omni rush, we're going to skip. I don't think anyone's using that. And then the miscellaneous tab just has some additional information. When we create that linked document, So we are saving that DTF file in Goldmine. We set the owner to public so that everyone can view it. If you don't want it to be that way, then you can uncheck that. So if you have quotes that other users shouldn't have access to, you can uncheck that. Any questions from the Goldmine people about setup here? Okay, so using the Goldmine integration, it's going to be very simple, and this is going to hold true with a lot of the integrations in QuoteWerks. They all operate essentially on the same principle, where everything is contact driven. So on the Sold to Ship to tab, when you want to search for a contact, you can click on the Search for Contact button, little magnifying glass here. This is going to bring up your Lookup Contact window. Now, if you have a contact already open in Goldmine, it's going to show you that contact. If you want to search for a different one, simply click on the Search Goldmine's database for contact. If you want to search for a secondary contact, just make sure you check that box, and it'll also show any secondary contact for that record. I'm just going to go ahead and use the one that I have open, and then you see I have a Sold to, Ship to, Bill to, and All buttons. This correlates with my 3 fields here, and then the All will populate all 3 fields at once. So if you're selling to the same location, everything's shipping to the same location, billing to the same location, you can click All and it'll populate all 3. The Sold to, and this is important for all of the CRM PSAs, the Sold to is kind of like the default field in QuoteWerks. This is who we're going to send this quote to, this is who we're going to create the opportunity for, this is who is going to be on the document unless you have made those changes. So there's something to keep in mind that the Sold to is kind of like the default. The Ship to and the Bill to are additional fields, so if you're going to be doing any kind of purchasing out of QuoteWerks, you'll obviously want to fill this out. The Ship to, but the Bill to is just an additional field. So if you're selling to one location, shipping to another, billing to a different one, you can have 3 different contacts in there, you have 3 different companies in there. They're completely unrelated fields. But again, the Sold to is kind of who we're going to be sending all this information to, so it's important that you always fill out the Sold to.
Are we ever going to have more than one ship to field?
If you're not using the Bill to, you could change that if you wanted to.
Well, we right now can't even see bill to. Where does that get set up?
Under the Tools Options menu, if you click on the Installation tab, yes, the Installation tab, there's a checkbox that says Hide Bill to Fields. Just uncheck that and then your Bill to fields will show up.
Okay, but there is no, at this time, because we ship sometimes to 20 different sites out of the same order.
No, the only thing I could think of is if you use custom fields on your custom tab, you might be able to put those shipping information in there.
Okay.
It might take some formatting, but you might be able to do that. Alright, so once you've selected your contact, you're going to see a few buttons open up here. The first one's going to be the Copy Contact button. This will let you copy from a different field. So if you just selected the Sold to information and you wanted to copy it to the Ship to, you can click on the drop down and choose which field you want to copy. If you just click the button, it's always going to copy from the Sold to. So, because like I said, again, this is kind of like the default field, kind of like the primary field. So if you just click on it, it's going to copy whatever's in the Sold to your Ship to. If you want to copy from a different field, just click on the drop down. This icon here will display this contact in your contact manager. So if you don't have that contact open in Goldmine and you're looking at their quote and you want to view their information, you can click on that and that'll actually bring that contact in Goldmine open for you. This will retrieve the current contact in Goldmine that's open into QuoteWerks. So this will just pull that over contact into QuoteWerks. Alright. So everything in QuoteWerks, again, based on the contact, I'm going to add a couple items here and we're going to discuss how to do this as well, but just for our demo here. Once you've created your quote and you click Save, this is going to be what's going to trigger the Goldmine integration. This is also going to trigger the CRM or PSA integration as well. Everything's done on the save, so when you save the quote in QuoteWerks, that's what's going to start writing the information into Goldmine. This is our document name, because that's what we set as our default. Our document number will be set automatically. Our status is going to be set as open, because again, that's our default, and then our project number is next available. We're going to go into this a little later that you can change the project number if you want. If you want to create or update the profile detail record, create or update a follow-up call, and create or update a forecasted sales / opportunity. Just check those boxes. So you basically get to choose which ones you want to create. If you remember before in the options menu, I talked about us automatically creating that linked document. That's what this checkbox is doing. So it's basically forcing that creation of that document in Goldmine no matter what I choose. So let's go ahead and create these. And then hit OK. So this is going to bring up the Create Goldmine Forecasted Sale or the opportunity. If the opportunity already exists, you can click on the drop-down menu and it will show you a list of the opportunities for that specific company. So if you wanted to, write over an existing opportunity, this would be your chance to do that. If one doesn't exist, then you can just select none, which would be the default.
So would that be a way to link it to the opportunity in Goldmine?
It would be, but we're going to take ownership of it, so we're basically going to overwrite it. So if you created the opportunity in Goldmine and then we link to it, we'll see it, we'll link to it, but then we're going to overwrite it with whatever's on the quote.
Is this a later version? Or should I have this if I don't have the latest version? Well, when I hit save, it didn't come out that way.
Yeah, it is a later version.
It is a later version that we don't have. Okay, because I'm like, this does not look familiar.
They're at lunch or something.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Here you can just set the close date. So you can set the close date of your opportunity. You can also set the activity code. This is going to use the default activities that you've set in Goldmine. You can choose to use it. And then also the probability, as well as set an alarm. So if you want to set a reminder, you can do that. And then also the RSVP here as well. Okay. And then this is going to let you schedule a Goldmine follow-up call. So if you need to set a reminder for yourself or for someone else, you can do that here. Pretty straightforward. Anyone have questions about follow-up calls? I'm just going to cancel there.
So I have a question. You said it would go to the opportunity, but then it would be overridden. If I went to the opportunity in Goldmine, would I be able to open that document or no?
Yeah.
It would still be connected to the opportunity and I could open it.
Right. So if what I meant to say was that if you manually created an opportunity in Goldmine, like you went into Goldmine, you said new opportunity,
Right.
and you put something in there, and then you came into QuoteWerks, you created a quote for that customer,
Yes.
and you hit save, and then you link it to the opportunity.
Yes.
Whatever you put in there, we're wiping out.
So you need to do your opportunity when you're doing your quote, basically.
Right.
Okay.
And that's the same with all other contact managers and CRMs.
Right.
The original opportunity you put in before the quote, that's what would be worked out.
Okay.
So
So we just
make
make
your
it.
opportunity when you're quote.
Alright, so we go to Goldmine and we go to our Opportunities tab. Brand new one.
What version of Goldmine is that?
This is 2014?
Is it web-based?
I don't think so.
No, it's not web-based.
So, I just installed it yesterday for this, so, does anyone have any questions about the integration so far with Goldmine? Makes sense. The next step is basically converting the quote to an order in QuoteWerks and then closing that opportunity in Goldmine. So the way we close quotes in QuoteWerks is by converting them to an order. If you want to convert it to an invoice, that's fine, but typically it's going to be an order. If you remember when we set it up, you had the option of if you want us to update the opportunity when we convert it to an order, that's how we can do that. So when you're ready, your customer says, yes, let's move forward, let's go ahead and do that. You're going to click on File, Convert to Order, and this is going to bring up your Convert to Order window. And then this is where you can change the document statuses. The defaults will already be set for you, but you can adjust this if you like. So if you want your quote to call it one instead of closed, you can change that. If you want to call the order, created or open or something else, you can do that as well. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And then this is going to say, hey, we're going to complete this existing Goldmine forecasted sale as successful. Do you want to change anything else? You can set any different defaults here. Hit OK. And then that's going to update it in Goldmine for you, kind of behind the scenes.
And if you export to your accounting package, it does the same process.
It'll be a little different. So if you, when you export to QuickBooks or Sage 50, whichever one you're using, you can tell it to look for quotes, that's fine. You know, if that's the way you're doing it, there's not any harm doing it that way. What a lot of users like to do is they say, only show me my orders that need to be exported, because they may have, 1,000 quotes sitting there. So the converting to order does two things. It updates your opportunity as one in your CRM and PSA. It also is going to let you, actually does three things, also let you do the purchasing out of QuoteWerks if you're going to be doing that. And then third thing is that you can actually set your filter when you export to QuickBooks or Peachtree to only look for open orders instead of looking for quotes or open quotes. Yeah. If you want to have it set specific like statuses for your quotes, if you want to manually change a quote status, you can do that on the Sale Info tab. Any questions on the Goldmine integration? Anyone? Anything you need to see or didn't see or want to see?
Just that we don't have the latest version.
Yeah, I just guess we don't have the latest version.
Okay.
But that's helpful, thanks.
Alright. So let me go back. Virtual machines and stuff. Okay, so we're going to move on to ConnectWise. ConnectWise users, do you guys have anything that you specifically want to see? Do you want to? We're not going to go through the setup for ConnectWise, that'll take about 45 minutes. But is there anything specific you want to see, or you just want to see a run through? Do you have a specific question?
Yeah, I should probably go through more of the opportunities in ConnectWise. And that's where I really know very little about and how the integration actually. What am I getting out of ConnectWise? Every time I do it, I seem to be getting very little in ConnectWise from what I'm doing, and I'm sure I'm missing a big piece.
Okay. So one thing that you're going to want to do is when you set up your ConnectWise integration, there is a pretty extensive setup. ConnectWise is a pretty powerful, complicated PSA. So when you set up the ConnectWise integration, everything is done on mappings. So there's a ton of mappings that need to be done. You can see this is just part of it. We just did Goldmine, which was a fairly simple integration compared to this one, where we have sub tabs and different tabs. But if you're only seeing certain things going to ConnectWise, it's probably mapping. It's usually always mapping related, where you don't have your mapping set here. So again, I'm not going to go through this, but we can take it offline and help you get that set up. But once you have your mapping set, everything that goes to ConnectWise is going to be based on this item type field here on the document items. So we'll go through the same thing. We'll select our contact from our sold to ship to tab. We'll search for a company. We'll pull them into QuoteWerks. If you have multiple addresses, it's going to prompt you to select the correct address. And then when you pull in the address, you can start adding items to the document. So again, I'm just going to add a couple items here. So again, everything's done on the save. So we create that opportunity on the save. Again, it's going to look very similar to what we just did in Goldmine. Their checkboxes are going to be a little different. So we're going to create that sales opportunity, create the link document, and also create a follow-up activity and a one-off activity. The follow-up activity and one-off activity are the exact same thing. It's just letting you do more than one. So if you need to set a reminder for yourself and for someone else, you can do that. If you only need the one, you can do that. If you don't want to set any, you can do that. So it's going to be up to you.
Brandon, can't you set it where all those check marks just automatically get checked?
Yeah, this will actually remember your settings. So once you run through this once, if you had these all checked, the next time you create a quote, it'll have them all checked.
Oh, okay.
That's a good point. Create service tickets. If you want to create a ticket at this point, you can do that. You'll also have the opportunity to do it once the customer has accepted the quote if you want to wait to create the ticket at that time. So it'll be up to you. If for some reason you don't have access to, if you're running the online version of ConnectWise, maybe your internet goes down but you want to save your quote, you can change status to offline. It'll save your work in QuoteWerks. It just won't integrate with ConnectWise. And then all you need to do is hit save again, change this status to online, and you're ready to move forward. That also goes with Salesforce and AutoTask and Sugar. If you're using any of those, just change the status to offline or on. go ahead and hit OK. So the first thing it's going to do is going to prompt us to create our opportunity in ConnectWise. Just like with Goldmine and any of the other CRMs, if you are creating a new opportunity, then we're just going to create it from scratch. If you want to link to an existing opportunity, we can do that. You can see here there's a list of different opportunities we could link to, but we are going to take ownership of that opportunity. We're going to overwrite that opportunity, so it's important to note. This is going to be the opportunity name. And then from the type field down are all other ConnectWise fields. So we're just pulling these fields from ConnectWise from the type down. So this is setting, if you want to set it as IT infrastructure or whatever you have in ConnectWise, we're using your defaults here. So if you don't see a default that you want to use, you just need to add that in ConnectWise. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see you have the option to write the individual product items into ConnectWise. So if you want your individual items in ConnectWise, you can do that. If you want to attach additional documents, maybe the customer sent you an RFP or an RFQ and you want to attach it, you can do that as well. So let's go ahead and save it. It's going to create the opportunity in ConnectWise. You're going to see it's going to add the items to ConnectWise, and it's going to prompt us to create the follow-up activity.
I get an error screen. I actually went online to your corporate. I get the way it's set up there, I get an error, so you can maybe look at that.
Okay.
What my mappings are.
Yep. Yeah, and that's probably this item type field right here. I have this set to basically everything goes over as a product unless it says service.
Yeah, that was, I don't see that online right now. So-
If you click on View Customized Columns,
Yeah, I was looking at that and I couldn't find it quick enough when you were going through it. But,
Yeah. But that's kind of the default field for ConnectWise and AutoTask users. This item type is going to determine how your item is sent to ConnectWise. So if the item's not going over to ConnectWise as a product or as a service, you can change that setting here.
So this is not a drop down, it's simple.
Yeah, that already impacts
Yeah, if you double click in it, you can see a pre-existing list. This will let you create a ConnectWise activity. So basically any of the activities that you've set up in ConnectWise, you can select here. And you can even choose who you want to assign it to in ConnectWise. So if you want to assign someone else a reminder to follow up on that, you can do that. You can even specify a time as well. And then this one-off activity is the exact same thing as a follow-up activity, like I said, just let you do more than one. And then if you wanted to create a service ticket, this is going to populate your ticket, and you can put in the information from ConnectWise here. The summary is the only required field other than your service support, obviously, but this will default for you, and then you can select a different one if you need to. When you put in your summary here, that's essentially the ticket name. So this will be whatever the name of the ticket is going to be, and then you can put in the description and the analysis here. If you want to create more than one, just do create. If you just want to create the, or create new, if you just want to create the one, do create.
I see, I have that on mine, but nothing ever shows over there.
The active quotes?
Yeah.
The active quotes means this is going to show you any open quotes you have in QuoteWerks for that specific contact.
Yeah, but it's just, nothing ever shows, is it something I need to set up, or?
You may just not have any.
No, I do have several quotes.
Do you guys use different statuses for your quotes?
We could, if I can check that.
That may be it, because I think it only searches for if the status is set as open.
Okay, because we have it as quoted,
That's why.
so it needs to change all of them to open.
Yeah, I don't know, is
And
that
that's
an
in the
INI setting that
documents.
can be changed?
Yeah, it is an INI setting that could be changed.
Okay, so we could, there's a, we can go into the database, just contact support. We might even be able to do it later today. And they can change that so it can look for quoted instead of open.
Okay.
So again, if you need to make any changes, you make your changes, and then when you're ready to convert it to an order, you file convert to order. And then that's going to change the quote to an order in QuoteWerks, and then it's also going to prompt you to update the opportunity in ConnectWise as one. You can change the sales stage. You can create tickets at this point. This is where I was talking about that you have essentially two different times you can do it. You can do it when you're creating or updating the quote, or you can do it when the customer is ready to convert to an order. Do you use sales orders in ConnectWise? No? Okay. If you wanted to create a sales order in ConnectWise, just check the box and we'll also spin off the sales order for you as well. Did you have any questions about the ConnectWise integration?
Yeah, I need to get more in depth as far as what, to ask intelligent questions.
Okay.
Rather than sit here and stumble through my questions, get more of a grasp of what it's doing for me.
I'll get with you offline so we can.
Thank you.
Jonathan, did you have any questions about the integration?
Not really any specific ones.
Okay.
Maybe that.
Susan, did you have any questions about the integration? Alright, so... Alright. We'll go to AutoTask. Michael, you're using AutoTask, right?
Right.
Okay. Did you have any questions about the AutoTask integration, or is there anything you want to see?
No, we're very new users, and we're also new users to AutoTask, so I think we need to get a little better understanding of everything. We don't have the full integration that we would want down the road, so I'm probably be coming back around a second time.
Okay. And let's do... Michael, you're using Salesforce, correct?
Yes.
Did you have any questions about the Salesforce integration?
No, sir.
Are you using the latest integration? Because we are running line items over there now. I wasn't sure if you were aware of that.
We don't want to bring the line items over, we just want the general opportunity in total, so it didn't really affect us.
Easy enough then?
Yep.
Alright, and then, okay, so ACT, you guys are using ACT, correct? Did you want to see the ACT integration, or do you have questions about it? Okay. Alright, I think we'll go ahead and we'll take a break. We'll take a 10-minute break if you guys want to come back at 9:40. Do that. If you have questions or anything, you're walking around.
So what do we do to update the newest version?
Is it the price?